let's talk about the preseason first weekend writ large by my colleague from the NFL Media Group. Loved doing all the NFL drafts with him over the years that I did with him. Former Pac-4 head coach David Shaw back here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Coach?
I felt great until you just said Pac-12. That is just the most uneasy thing anybody can say to me right now.
I'm sorry, but it's the truth. Let's just jump right in with that. What's your 2 cents on what's going on with the Pac-12 and Stanford seemingly left without a major, large conference chair right now, David?
Yeah, I don't think, of course, we all know it's not completely settled yet. There's still a lot of things that could happen. None of us, I'm talking about not just being the former head coach there, but being an alumnus of Stanford and all the people I know, my friends and colleagues, and it's just difficult. It's difficult when you look at all the players from this conference that should have a lasting legacy, that it should not just disappear to zero. You know, you're talking about Jim Plunkett, John Elway, Andrew Luck, right? The whole line, Christian McCaffrey, all these guys, they should have a legacy. Those records should exist someplace. So you hate for the conference to disappear, but at the same time, it's a new era right now. And if you don't play by the rules that everybody else plays by and you sit and wait, you're left out. And that's where the conference is, and that's where my school is right now. Waiting for something else to happen that hopefully can salvage something, yes, monetarily, but also, I can't help but think about the legacy of the conference. I have a little bit of pie in the sky that once all this stuff settles, and then 7-8 years from now, when all these deals are about to be re-signed again, that maybe somehow we can form this conference back again. But for right now, it's tough times out here on the West Coast.
Did you get a sense in your final years at Stanford about the tenuous nature of the Pac-12 and its future? Did you see any warning signs, flashing red lights on that front, David?
More than warning signs, it felt like there were bombs going off around us. We all knew, right? The first contract that we signed as the Pac-12 was right around my first year, the big contract, and we didn't get a lot of that money that was promised. The DirecTV deal never came through. A lot of things didn't happen. So that first deal was just not what we had hoped it to be. And all the other conferences signed better deals than ours. And we signed a longer-term deal, so they actually re-upped theirs before we got to ours. So it was just bad on both sides. But the bottom line was we knew school by school we were getting less money than everybody, less coverage than everybody. And we were hoping this next deal was going to be much better and more lucrative and could keep the conference together, if not expand. I mean, we almost expanded multiple times. Everybody remembers the deal with Texas and Oklahoma was just about to be signed, and that fell apart. A couple other things almost happened, and then we went from things almost happening to nothing happening to schools and presidents, university presidents, who I think there's a lot of culpability on those desks. Nobody really brings that up, but there's a lot of culpability on the president's desk. But then as an individual president, you're saying, hey, you're promising me things that nothing is happening. Mm-hmm. And this other conference is coming to me, putting a check on my desk. And eventually, money talks, and schools walked.
So I guess last one for you on this, because you just mentioned about stuff on presidents' desks and things of that nature, and then we'll get to the NFL preseason that you're part of with us at NFL Network. So why do you think this happened? From your position and having been in the middle of it, why do you think the demise of the Pac-12, and I know you say there's hopefully still a silver lining, why do you think it happened, David?
And there's a lot of blame going back to Larry Scott, and it's not just Larry Scott. There was this whole time period, I think, where out here we've always seen ourselves as leaders. My school in particular, the conference in particular, is even outside of the main sports, football and basketball. Mm-hmm. But these TV deals have a lot to do with mainly football. And the commitment that was necessary to make to football without sacrificing the academic integrity. Right? This has nothing to do with academic integrity. This has to do with recognizing that what football is in this nation is number one, right? NFL is number one, college football is number two, or depending on your opinion, you might flip those two, but those are the top two sports in our country. Recognizing that and putting that first so that it can benefit your entire university. I think as a conference, we kind of lost sight of that. I think we backed away from that and recognizing where, and we all saw where it was going, and we chose not to lead. We chose to wait. And you wait too long, money happens other places, and now our conference gets pulled apart.
David Shaw here on the Rich Eisen Show. What did you see in preseason weekend number one that stands out to you? I'll go macro with you. What lingers from the first 16 preseason games that you saw, David?
Well, the change in the NFL in the last few years, where there's less of a priority put on the preseason for your veterans. There's very few places believe in playing the older guys, and a lot of those guys like Patrick Mahomes, they want to play at least a little bit. They want to get that juice going. Mm-hmm. They're doing these combined practices with other teams, and that's where they get the bulk of the work for the older guys. It's not live, there's not a lot of tackling, but they get that extra oomph of raising the level of competition. But I still love the preseason because you get a chance to see a lot of the rookies, a lot of guys, second, third-year guys trying to make the team. It's funny to me that the biggest quarterback battle in the league right now is the backup role for the San Francisco 49ers. That's fascinating. I don't know if that's ever happened before, but that's fascinating.
Well, you were there. You were in Niners training camp for Inside Training Camp for NFL Network, and I'm sure you saw what you saw yesterday. What did you see? What's your assessment of it right now, David?
And I'm reserving judgment until the end. When all the snaps are taken and decisions have to be made. But it looked like about what I thought it was going to look like, which was Trey Lance hasn't played a lot of snaps of live football since his junior year of college, or his second last year of college, and that's what it looked like. He is big, he's athletic, he's got a strong arm. Almost pulled the trigger a couple times. He had to pull the ball back a couple of times, which just slows you down from getting from your first read to your second read, and took some hits, took some sacks, got into rhythm for a little bit, and started to look like the guy that not just the 49ers, but, more than half the league was super intrigued about this guy. His traits are real. His personality, his mentality, all that stuff's great. He just hasn't had the snaps. So you saw some of that. Escaped the pocket a couple times, made a couple throws in a row on the outside, which was great. And then Sam Darnold looked like the guy that, most people were excited about when he came out of USC. If this guy gets protection, he can sit back in the pocket. He can make some great throws. He missed a couple. So neither guy is perfect, which makes it even more intriguing that there's not an easy way to say. So being in the Bay Area, it's really funny just to scan social media, and half the people are saying not just Trey Lance should be number two, but Trey Lance should be number one. Some people are saying trade Trey Lance, get him out of here. Mm-hmm. Sam Darnold's the obvious number two. So there's just opinions are all over the place, but it's fascinating and fun to watch.
Well, I know I sat next to you at the draft in Dallas, where Baker Mayfield went first, then Saquon, and then Darnold to the Jets. You were very high on Darnold. Obviously, you played against him and you had a game plan for him. But here he is now, and it does seem that, again, I know this is just for the backup role, but it does appear that he's finally in a spot. It took a while, but he's finally in a spot for himself. And I don't know what that means for Lance, obviously, but that's just my assessment, that he seems to finally be in the right spot. And interestingly enough, it's not to be the starter at present, David.
For what he did in college, Kyle's offense is such a perfect fit for him. Quick release. He's got a quick release and a strong arm. The combination of movements and play actions. Mm-hmm. He's a really good athlete throwing the ball on the edge. He's a good decision maker. Those years, with the Jets were really tough to watch because there's a lot on his shoulders, and he probably tried to do too much, which is tough when you're down by 3, you're down by 7 at the end of the game. You're trying to make things happen. Especially when that happens week after week after week, you take too much on your shoulders. But in this offense with this team, gosh, you just drop back, get the ball out of your hands, put the ball in the playmaker's hands, and it seems like a great fit for him.
David Shaw, my colleague with the NFL Media Group right here on the Rich Eisen Show. How about the quick strike Bears offense? How about that one, David?
This is one of the more intriguing situations also for me. You've got a freak show athlete in Justin Fields. And I saw a stat the other day that was really interesting, that the Bears threw the ball down the field pretty much at top more than most teams in the league, somewhere in the top 5. But you look at the Chiefs, who won the Super Bowl, and they threw the ball behind the line of scrimmage more than anybody in the league over the last 5 to 7 years. So it was great to see Justin Fields get the ball out of his hands, goes 3 for 3, throws 2 touchdown passes, and both those touchdown passes were screens. So it's great to say, hey, we got a young kid who's a great athlete. Let's get the ball out of his hands. Let's not make him hold it. Let's have him get comfortable in the pocket. Let's take some pressure off of the offensive line with those deep drop backs. So that was great to see. And I'm rooting for this young man to have some good success. And at some point, he's got to show that ability, not just to take off to run, but to beat you from the pocket. But getting the ball out of his hands quicker can really help his growth and maturity. And
another kid I know you were high on when he got drafted, Jahan Dotson in Washington. He had a very nice day. Sam Howell, 9 of 12, 77 yards and a score. Did you see enough out of him, or are you seeing enough out of him to say, okay, that is a starting quarterback that can be successful in this league? David?
To me, this is one of those things that I circled as soon as Eric Bieniemy got the job, because I really like Sam Howell coming out. He's got some really nice traits. He's also one of those guys, whenever you bump into one of his teammates or former coaches, they light up, right? There's something about this guy. And now to get him in an offense with some real weapons around him, he's got a couple of really good receivers. And now you've got this team, just as I mentioned. I mean, they're throwing the ball, getting the ball out of the quarterback's hands. They don't take sacks. They don't make negative plays. And you can get a quarterback in the rhythm. So a guy who's got some ability, he's got some leadership ability, he's got a little bit of mobility, just enough mobility. This could be a lot of fun for those starving Washington Commanders fans.
So does this mean Sam can take hard coaching if he's performing well with Bieniemy, David? Is that what that means?
I laughed when all this stuff came out about Eric Bieniemy's intensity. You don't think Kyle Shanahan is intense? I mean, the guys in this league that want to win at a high level, they push their players to be at their absolute best. So I laugh at all that because that goes on all over the place. But I think this guy's got the tools. I think in putting this scheme in with some really dangerous weapons around him, it could go really well for the quarterback and the Commanders.
Well, I mean, when that all came out last week, David, it was kind of like a couple things. First of all, who'd you think you were hiring with Eric Bieniemy? There's a wall and there's a flower, and he's not either of them. Or he might be a brick wall, right? So that's but it was kind of the fact that Ron Rivera made mention that some people are coming up to him complaining about him. That was the oddity, I guess, of it, to be honest with you. And I'm just wondering, are kids not used to that hard coaching at college to come out into the pros? Right? I don't know.
Well, and I don't want to read into the situation. I think it's probably a little bit blown out of proportion. I thought it was more comedy than anything else. Mm-hmm. But there is some truth to what you're saying. In this era of these players can leave at any point in time. I've heard a lot of college coaches like, man, sometimes I can't really jump on a kid like I would have before to get his attention because he might be in the portal the next day. So there's a little bit of that maybe seeping in. But at the same time, Bieniemy's trying to establish a culture. He's trying to establish expectations, even more than the culture. Because the expectations is perfection. You want to be great. You want to set the bar super, super high, and somebody doesn't reach the bar, you got to push those guys. And for years, as a head coach, that's what you try to do. But what you really try to do in the process is teach those guys to embrace those high expectations. And after a while, it shouldn't be Eric Bieniemy doing all the yelling, right? It'll be the players holding each other to that standard, because that's what's going on at the Chiefs, right? The places that win a lot. It's not the coaches that are just doing all the yelling. It's the players and their expectations. I remember when I joined the Baltimore Ravens, I heard Ray Lewis's voice setting expectations more than I heard the coaches. So in an environment where maybe the players aren't ready to take that on, the coach, yes, has to do it to set that standard, but you want the other guys to start to embrace that. So now it's everybody has those expectations. Everybody pushes everybody, and that's where your organization starts to rise.
A few more minutes left with David Shaw, my colleague from NFL Network here on the Rich Eisen Show. Are you concerned about Russell Wilson at all, David?
I spent a few days in the off season over there. I'm not. It takes a while to convert everybody, because it's not, of course, and everything goes on the quarterback. I used to say that all the time. It's the quarterback and the head coach. We take too much blame and too much credit, right? When you're putting in an entire system, especially a system with a lot of intricacies, it takes a little while for the offensive line to get it all, and the running game to mesh, and the receivers to know that, you're not right about here, no, exactly right here, right? To get all of those things. And I thought the back-to-back plays were really interesting, where Russell makes a heck of a play, escapes the pocket, gets outside, throws the ball to Jerry Jeudy, and he drops it. And it's fourth down. They go for it. And now it's cover zero. Russell stands in there versus cover zero. He knows he's going to get hit. Jerry Jeudy makes a great break on an option route, catches the ball, and scores a touchdown. So I think there's going to be some more of that in the preseason with these guys of like, oh, we screwed it up. Oh, we didn't do it right. And then, oh, that's what it looks like. So, being fortunate enough to be with Coach Harbaugh when we went to Stanford, we had to instill a lot in the guys. To be with John Gruden when we went to the Oakland Raiders, teaching them how to win and how to be consistent, that takes a little bit of time. So that's why I think you saw those guys play a little bit longer than maybe they were planned to. But I could see Coach Payton saying, gosh, we need them to taste some success and see what it feels like a little bit at a time. And then that starts to grow, and then you get better.
Last one for you, David Shaw. You were one of the more media-savvy coaches around when, obviously you're at Stanford and everywhere else you've been. Clearly you've spent enough time with NFL Network now on a draft and now this preseason. So I will ask you this question. Now that you're in the media, the team we are not talking about enough is fill in that blank for me. We're not talking about this team enough currently entering 2023. Is which, David?
I'm not going to take the bait. It's not your Jets.
Well, we're talking about them enough. But I mean, honestly, though, you could also say a team that we're talking. You think we're talking about them too much, but we're not. So, what do you think? I'll give you that out too. Give me that one.
That's a great question.
Thank you.
You know what? I'm going to have to say. I mean, there are a couple that come to mind, and this is a team that they are being talked about a lot, but I think they have a chance to really challenge beyond just getting in the playoffs.
Okay.
That's the Detroit Lions. Dan Campbell with the biting on the kneecaps and all that stuff. There's something that this man has. And I've just labeled it as authenticity.
Okay.
He is who he is every single day. His players respond to him. They depend on that. He pushes them and knows how to push them. He knows how to back them off. He's rejuvenated the quarterback. I hate talking about Cal guys loudly, but
good one. Yes.
The environment has rejuvenated the quarterback. Their coordinator, who jumps on the scene and has a great year, decides to come back. He could have been a head coach a couple different places. He comes back. You draft Jahmyr Gibbs, who that was one of the 2 or 3 guys in the draft that I just looked at and said, every time he touches the ball, you get on the edge of your seat. So now you got an explosive running back. You got Amon-Ra St. Brown, who should be in the Pro Bowl this year. This young man has an edge. He can get open repeatedly. Now you got more juice in the backfield there. Aiden Hutchinson, another Michigan man. He's got a chance, I think, to really explode on the scene. He'll be one of the best pass rushers. So now you've got premier players at multiple positions, and you've got a head coach that knows his team and a team that will show you that they will show up every week and fight. They got a chance to be really good.
And they finished really strong last year. They sent Aaron Rodgers to the Jets, did they not? The Lions.
Yes, they did.
Okay, so you think not just win the division, but go deep, maybe a Final Four in the conference, if not further? David Shaw, for real?
I mean, there are two monsters in the NFC, right? The 49ers and the Eagles.
Yep.
The Cowboys are going to be good. but you got a team that has the elements of being able to just on one day, right, in a divisional round maybe, surprise a really good team and make enough plays to win. And everybody in the league knows all you have to do is get in the tournament, and as soon as you can get momentum and ride that, anybody can win it.
David, always love our chats. Thank you for doing this. I love you being part of NFL Network and being on this show. For real. Thank you.
Anytime. Thanks, my friend.
Right back at you. That's David Shaw, at Coach David Shaw on Twitter. Right here on the Rich Eisen Show. I hit him. I didn't mean, he's such a sweetheart. I didn't mean to hit him in the gut right off the bat by calling him a Pac-4 coach.
That cut him, man.
It did.
He's like, what?
To the bone. He's like, wait a minute. I liked coming on this show. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.